All right, let's talk about a franchise that you might have heard their name, but you don't know exactly what they do or the actual financial opportunity. This is a franchise that I'm actually really excited to dive into and talk about because I know a lot about this franchise. I know people who own this franchise. At one point, I even looked into buying this franchise myself, at least a resale. I'll tell you the story behind that later on in the video, but we are going to dive into budget blinds. So we're going to talk about their startup cost. How much does it cost to get one up and open? We're going to talk about how much their sales are. I think you're going to be surprised by some of the numbers and ultimately answer the question, is this a good investment for you? So let's dive in. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Tarek Johnson. I'm the CEO and founder of Franchise Empire, where we have helped hundreds of individuals find, vet, buy, and launch proven money-making franchises. So let's dive into budget blinds before we go over their startup costs and their average sales that their franchisees are making. Let's rewind for a second and talk a little bit about how they got up and open and got started. So in 1992, 5 friends started budget blinds in Orange County, California, and they had learned the business working for another blinds franchise but wanted more control and more opportunity. I love this story, right? Because I tell people all the time, people ask, should I buy a franchise? Should I start my own thing? Should I buy a business? And my answer is, just because you do one today doesn't mean you can't do the other tomorrow, right? And so sometimes you learn what you want and you evolve in your entrepreneurial journey through different experiences. I kept trying to start businesses on my own and failing. Had 9 failed businesses, then was able to run successful franchises. And then now I created Franchise Empire, a company that I built from scratch. So you can do it all, maybe not all at the same time. And I think it's pretty cool that these guys learned the business working for a different blinds franchise, and then they went out and became a franchisor. How cool is that? And so with just a small financial investment from each of the friends, they printed flyers, they knocked on doors, and they sold blinds one house at a time. So they went out there and did it. They proved that the model worked and that it could be successful. Here's the cool thing about having different founders and partners. I know that's like a whole other challenge, having business partners, right? Some people say never have partners, it never works out. Well, clearly the end result worked out for them, but they each took on a different role: operations, IT, marketing, sales, franchise support, and they were able to build a lean but powerful franchise system. So having individuals in your business with specific superpowers is really, really key to be able to complement each other's strengths and each other's weaknesses. So 1994, just 2 years later, they launched Budget Blinds as a franchise, opening the door for others to run their own local budget blinds franchise businesses. And it was one of the first brands to launch a successful franchise model in the home services industry. It kind of sounds crazy if you think about it, because right now, home services is booming. That is the category that has exploded the most in franchising in really the last, 5 to 10 years. Most people always thought about food. That's probably what you think about when you think about franchising, but food only represents a very small portion of the franchise opportunities that are out there. So growth exploded. Budget Blinds quickly became the #1 window coverings franchise in North America. Think about it. The name alone is a brilliant name. Budget Blinds. The ironic part, here's the ironic part, it's not cheap. They're not cheap, guys. That's the funny part about it. It's called Budget Blinds. I think the idea is that they can help someone find blinds and window treatments for any budget, but in my experience, it's not cheap. And again, we're going to dive into cost, sales, how much the franchisees are making. Quick story. So when I opened my first franchise location in California, right next to me was a Supercuts franchise, and we were all opening in a brand new shopping center, all opening at the same time. So all of us owners would chit chat. There's a Jersey Mike's 2 doors down from us, right next to the Supercuts, and I got to know the owner of the Supercuts, Adam, and turned out he also owned a couple of budget blinds territories at that time too. And at a certain time of the day with our store, we would just have the sun just blasting in. It was like blinding, and we had this huge window in our franchise. And so Adam hooked it up and he installed a blind in our store. And even with the discount, it was not cheap. But that's really how I started getting exposed to budget blinds. I've had Adam on my podcast before. We'll drop a link if you want to watch one of the podcast episodes that I did with him and his business partner about how they built their budget blinds empire. But the company normally highlights its large network of over 1,400 franchisees making over 45,000 installations per week. Pretty crazy. So check this out. In terms of how many units do they have open? And keep in mind, for a service-based franchise, units does not mean physical location. Units is typically a specific territory, a specific cluster of zip codes, or maybe one zip code. And so one franchisee could own 3 units, but those 3 units could just be 3 different geographic areas, right? Hopefully that makes sense for you. So 1,400 territories and units open across the US, Canada, and Mexico. All right, little trivia for you, If you get it right, we'll send you one of these mugs or something similar. You get to pick. We'll send you a t-shirt, we'll send you a mug, we'll send you a hat if you get this trivia right. The first person to get it right, and no cheating, okay? So Budget Blinds was started by 5 friends in California. Do you know how much money each of them put in to start the business? How much money did each of them put in to start the business? Let us know in the comments below, and you can win one of these cool mugs or just any of the swag that we have here in the office. Let's talk about startup costs, and then we'll dive into how much money these franchisees are making with this franchise. So the estimated total initial investment is $100,500 to $211,250. Franchise fee is $19,950. Now you may say, that sounds pretty low for a franchise fee, especially nowadays. What we see is the average franchise fee is around $40,000 to $50,000 for a franchise location. There's an initial territory fee. So you pay that in addition to the initial franchise fee. So what they call a tier 1 territory is $70,000. So tier 1 territory is going to have a higher population basis, a higher amount of households in that territory. Tier 2 territory is $45,000. Tier 3 territory is $30,000. So it's cool for you to know is that you're paying more for a better territory, basically, which is cool. A lot of franchises do not do that, and you pay the same franchise fee no matter what the opportunity is in the territory. Royalties. So until December 2025, each month you will pay $2,500 for a tier 1 territory, $1,875 for tier 2 territory, $1,250 for tier 3 territory. Now this is a big controversial point that happened in Budget Blinds. The reason why I know this is, again, I have a buddy that owns a lot of Budget Blinds. I think they own 10 or 11 territories now. But Budget Blinds always operated on a flat fee royalty. So we just talked about those flat fees, just a flat $2,500 for tier 1 territory. So think about that. If you're doing $500,000 a year in your tier 1 territory, you pay $2,500 a month in royalties. If you are making $1 million in your territory, paying $2,500 a month in your tier 1 territory. If you're doing $1.5 million in sales, you're paying the same $2,500 a month. So really for the top performers, definitely benefited them the most in that arrangement, and they operated under a flat fee model for many, many years. But as of January 1st, 2026, they're pivoting. And so you must pay the greater of those flat amounts, or 3.5% of gross revenue for the preceding month. So some of those higher performing franchisees, their costs are going to go up, and likely their profitability will go down. The biggest question is, does it still create the opportunity for you as a franchisee to profit and to make a living? Right? And at the end of the day, most franchisors have a percentage-based royalty model. So the people that were in Budget Blinds before definitely got to take advantage of that overall. There also is a marketing fee. So for a tier 1 territory, it's $1,000 until we have 1,500 territories, and $1,500 from then on. Tier 2 territory, it's $750 until they have 1,500 territories, and then it's $1,125 from then on, so on and so forth. So that's an interesting model. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But Budget Blinds does do a lot of marketing. They do some radio ads, so on and so forth, for their franchisees that drive a bunch of leads. By the way, if you're thinking, hey, I'm interested in owning a franchise, I've been watching these videos, it's something that's kind of on my mind, I'd love to cut through the noise and find out, hey, what are some solid franchise opportunities that are lower cost that have shown a track record of franchisees making money? Well, then you're in luck. I have a gift for you. It is our 5 low-cost franchises that all make $1 million or more. It's a list of 5 franchises that, well, what do you think? They make $1 million. So if you want to grab that for free, we have a PDF breakdown and an accompanying video breakdown as well. You can go to franchiseempire.com/low cost. If you don't feel like typing it in, just go down below in the comments and in the description. The link will be there for you. You can click on it and boom, have it in your inbox within about 60 seconds. All right, so let's talk about their sales. So we'll cover 2023 sales and 2024 sales. Here's what's interesting. In 2023, owners that owned just one single territory, did $795,000 in sales. And in 2024, on average, did $853,000 in sales. That represents about a $60,000 increase of average sales, which is about 7%, somewhere around 7% increase in year-over-year average sales for people that own one territory. Solid growth. Franchisees that own two territories. In 2003, their average sales were $1.238 million, so $1,238,000. And in 2024, average sales were $1,252,000. So only about a $14,000 increase there, which is just a little bit over 1%. So not really significant growth there. And then franchisees who own three territories, in 2023, they did $2.7 million in sales. And in 2024, $2.5 million in sales. So average sales actually declined for owners that owned three territories. And so single territory franchisee, the lowest sales in the system, $135,000. The highest was $8.7 million, which is pretty impressive. That's for single territory. And the lowest amount reported for franchisees with three or more territories, $546,000. Highest performing franchisee with three or more territories, $14.8 million. Now, at the end of the day, what we don't know is, do they own 3? Do they own 5? Do they own 8? Do they own 10? We're not sure. It doesn't say that, but gives us a pretty good idea overall of what the financial opportunity is. And guys, here's what's interesting about budget blinds is that because they've been around in business for so long, number one, it's almost impossible, not almost impossible, but there's very, very few new territories available, but there are often resales, and sometimes they're publicly listed, sometimes they're not publicly listed. Here's the good news: we have access to their entire inventory of resales. So if you're interested and want to know, hey, is there a budget blinds resale available in my area, and you want to know, you can go to franchiseempire.com/resales, and we can do a check for you for free and see what resales are available in the budget blind system. What's cool and what's interesting about resales, or not about resales, but about budget blinds, is that for years they had many husband and wife duos that came in as franchisees that ran the business. They worked together and they ran a pretty lean business. They didn't run it like building an operation. And so over time, you have more and more of those owners that are retiring now. They're listing their businesses for sale, and there's often pretty significant growth opportunity there because they weren't running it like an empire. They were just running it like a kind of a mom and pop business, not being too aggressive with their growth. So I think there's some interesting upside out there in the marketplace depending upon the territory and who was running it. Now, for the trivia, if you guess that they each put in $5,000, you got it right, and we will reach out and send you some swag. That was a small investment by each of the 5 partners, $5,000 each, $25,000. And so budget blinds proves that you really don't need a massive budget in order to buy window treatments. No, just get a franchise up and open. But if you want to see that podcast episode with my buddy who owns a bunch of budget blinds, you can click right here. And if you want to watch a playlist of more of these breakdowns of franchises that you see every day, you can click right here, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.